Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes with Bus Stampede alongside Leo Rivera and Liam Howard from Scova Sports, and we are here for day 2 of the Big 12 Championships. Iowa State versus Cincinnati is about to tip off, but we'll get to that soon. The Buffs, though, they play later today against number 8 West Virginia. The last seed of Buffaloes beat TCU yesterday in a 2-point upset. That was a very close game, but very exciting nonetheless. But getting into this one, looking ahead at this West Virginia game, would you guys have some initial thoughts?
Yeah, first and foremost, obviously, it's hard to beat a team twice. Liam's harped on it. It's the old adage. It's been around forever. I think that's going to play in favor for Colorado. And not only are you getting the second day on the same court you already played on, you're going to have the advantage there. And it's the same time you played on as the day before. I think those factors make it shape up for a Colorado upset.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, Colorado's fresh. They played a game yesterday. They're ready to go. West Virginia's had a little bit more rest, but sometimes that can hurt a team. And I think in a situation like this where you have a team like Colorado that knows that they got to fight for every inch they're going to get in this tournament, that's going to come into play big time for them today. And offensive rebounding is going to have to be something that they can't overlook again today. It was overlooked big time yesterday, and it almost cost them against TCU. It made it a very close game, a lot closer of a game than it should have been. But if they can limit that today against West Virginia, I like their chances.
Yeah, offensive rebounding, like you said, was a big thing versus TCU, but West Virginia is one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the Big 12, so I think the Buffs, they'll be able to do much better on the glass. I think they'll definitely make a much better effort, bigger emphasis heading into that game, even though Tad Boyle likes to make a huge emphasis on defense and rebounding. But, personally, the guy I'm looking out for, like I said last night, is Javon Small. He has been one of the best players in the Big 12. He scored 26 points, had 7 assists in Boulder in the first meeting 2 months to today, in the only meeting that West Virginia played the Buffs. So I was wondering what you think about him, but potentially some of the other Mountaineers that have come along down the stretch of the season. And, how has this Mountaineers team changed in 2 months, or how have the Buffs changed in 2 months? It's been a long time, a lot different than the 4-day separation that separated Colorado from playing TCU.
Most definitely. I mean, Tad Boyle said it yesterday during the press conference. He mentioned that during the month of January, he didn't feel they weren't getting better. However, February, different story, right? Starting to put together more games, starting to play teams more closer. He mentioned this West Virginia and the Houston losses as games where he felt the team was actually getting better. I think that shows confidence. I think that shows hungerness and an eagerness to come out and compete in the locker room postgame. Also, these guys told us they're sore losers. They don't like losing, and considering they've done a lot of that this year, I think it's time they want to do some change.
Yeah, and I mean, with TCU, that's a team that they were able to see within 4 days, as you said, and that, there wasn't a lot of change TCU was able to make in that amount of time. But with West Virginia, this is going to be a completely different team than the last time they faced them. It's been a couple months, so it's going to be a different team today. And I think they're going to need to eliminate Small for sure. They're going to need to eliminate the top scorers on that team, and they're going to need to make sure that they can't find efficient looks. They can't find high percentage shots all day. That's what they did well against TCU. And despite their struggles with offensive rebounding, they were able to pull that game out because of their elimination of those high percentage shots. So they can continue to do that today against a team that can't rebound offensively all that well. I think they can pull this one out, especially even if they're not able to get their scoring going necessarily.
I think the Buffs can pull this one out as well because they're playing a lot more loose. Guys like Charles Baskin are playing a lot better. Javon Ruffin's playing a lot better. Even a guy like Felix Caceres, a true freshman, has been playing his best stretch of basketball of the season as of late. And honestly, I thought he played his best game of the season yesterday versus TCU. So the Buffs, they're clicking on all cylinders. West Virginia, on the other hand, they've dealt with some injuries, but they went 10-10 in conference play, got that 8 seed for a reason, and they ended this season on a 2-game winning streak, which they're bringing into this tournament. So they're going to be trying to hit on all cylinders themselves. But looking at the rest of today, we have Iowa State versus Cincy. This is the first game, like I said, after Colorado versus West Virginia. We have Kansas State versus Baylor, and then to finish it off, we have Kansas versus UCF. And so I was wondering if any of those games stood out to you, and if we want to do some of those predictions right at this moment. I guess we can start with Leo.
Yeah, we'll take off on the very last game. You mentioned Kansas UCF to close off the night. This is one I got highlighted ever since we saw UCF explode from three-point range yesterday, right? They were firing, they were hitting all their shots, and that made for a really entertaining game against Utah. I think they're hot. Their band was rocking. They had very similar energy that Colorado did as well. Both teams eerily similar, and with a heavy Kansas crowd expected to be in attendance, I'm excited to see how the UCF Knights show up today.
enough.
Yeah, I got to go with the Kansas State game. I mean, Kansas State and Baylor, we saw how Kansas State packed the stadium yesterday, and now we got an even bigger stage against Baylor today. Both of those Kansas games, the Kansas and Kansas State games, essentially serving as home games for those teams, and that's going to play to their advantage in this tournament. That's going to be a huge deal for them, and I think that Kansas State and Baylor game, those are two very even teams. They've been up and down offensively. They're not the biggest teams size-wise, but they are able to bring it at certain times, and against the right opponents, they've shown that they can. They like Kansas State against Arizona State yesterday. Their offense looked like one of the best in the Big 12 against that team because they knew exactly how to attack them and they knew how to limit the streaky shooting and the streaky scoring. And if they can have that same, the right game plan for Baylor as well, I could see them looking about as good as they did yesterday, especially in front of that home crowd.
I think both of you guys are right. I agree with both of your picks. But, even looking at Iowa State, Cincy, because that's the only game we haven't talked about. Iowa State, they've been one of the more interesting teams for me to watch this year, especially because we've seen them play the Buffs 3 times. But they can shoot the ball. They pressure the heck out of the ball against opposing teams. They force a bunch of turnovers. They like to rebound. So they like to get after it. But as we saw yesterday with Cincinnati, we called them the Lob City Bearcats. They were running all over the place. They had a lot of fun with it, too, creating a bunch of highlight plays, specifically Dan Skillings Jr., who got up for a lot of those lobs. So, a bunch of fun games today. I agree that, I picked Kansas in that late night game. I picked Kansas. I picked Baylor. I think they're going to upset Kansas, or not. They're the higher seed, but I think, with it being a home game, it's going to feel more like an upset if Baylor takes that dub. I'm putting my money on VJ Edgecombe, the talented freshman. And then that first game, Iowa State versus Cincinnati. I like Cincinnati. They're fun, but Iowa State, they're too deep. Curtis Jones, the 6th man of the year, coming off the bench. He's one of the most prolific scorers in the conference. So those are my picks. I know that you didn't make your pick for Kansas State versus Baylor and Iowa State versus Cincy. You didn't make Kansas versus UCF or the Iowa State versus Cincy game. So I guess let's get your 2 picks and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Yeah, first and foremost, we've seen a lot of Iowa State Cyclone fans since we've gotten into Kansas City and since we've been in the arena in our short time this morning. I think they're going to have the energy, they're going to have the momentum, the passion. They're going to come through, and I think they take care of business.
Yes, sir. What do you think about Kansas State versus Baylor?
This is going to be an exciting game all over. I'm really on the fence with this one, but as of now, in my heart, I think the Baylor Bears are going to come out and get it done.
Yes, sir. What do you think, Liam?
All right, so yes, starting it off with the Iowa State and Cincy game. I mean, Cincinnati, we saw the Lob City Bearcats yesterday, but that's not something that's going to be easy to replicate against a team like Iowa State. They were able to get that going against Oklahoma State because Oklahoma State was not playing very well down close to the basket, and they weren't playing very physical defense. You're not going to get that same type of advantage with Iowa State. I got to take the Cyclones for that reason. And then moving on to Kansas and UCF later in the night. UCF, as you mentioned, the threes were falling yesterday, and that was pretty unstoppable for that entire game. And yeah, Utah just was never able to climb back out of that. But with a team like Kansas, they're also going to be a better team defensively. And then with their top scorers, Hunter Dickinson, I expect to have a huge night for Kansas against a smaller team in UCF. So I got to go with the Jayhawks to close that game out and close out the second night of games.
Obviously, some solid picks that I agree with. Liam just shouted out Hunter Dickinson. He put up 33 and a huge double-double against Colorado. He's been exciting. So, he's definitely one to look out for. I highlighted VJ Edgecombe. Of course, he talked about Javon Small. But, Leo, if none of those 3 excite you, I'm sure they do. Is there anyone else that you're looking out for today, or is it just those top 3 that you're hoping for? Even some buffs that you're hoping, maybe for some big performances?
You know what? Talking about some buffs, I think I'm looking for Andre Yakimovsky to pick up where he left off yesterday. I think his presence on the defensive end is what translates over into those fast breaks, those high-tempo movements. And if the Buffs are going to want to have success like they did yesterday, I think he needs to hit a lot of threes once again, just like he did yesterday.
Yeah, I think so, too. And, I keep bringing up Javon Small, but that is a big name to look out for. And Andre Yakimovsky had the defensive matchup with him in Boulder 2 months ago, and he'll probably have it today as he's been the best defender for the Buffs this season. But I think that gives up all our time at the beginning of the day. I don't think there's much more to talk about. So we'll catch you at the end of day 2 of the Big 12 Championships. And as always, my name is Oliver Hayes alongside Lou Rivera and Liam Howard. And you heard it here first.